Hey guys, Eric with Stochastic with another one of our marketing strategy videos, and today I wanted to walk you through a topic that comes up pretty often, and that is A/B testing. I wanted to walk you through it because this time of year especially, people are always bringing up, should we do an A/B test? And contractors have a good reason for wanting to do it. They want to find the best way to market their business. How do I get the best response? How's the best way I can reach out to people in my community and drive them to my business? And A/B testing has a long history of being used in marketing. Major marketing firms have been using it for decades to drive their decisions, and the reason is it allows them to hone in on the very best way to present an ad by using simple variations of the same piece and looking at the change in response, and then kind of calling down to those things that are most effective at driving response for that particular ad. And so today I want to walk you through how we do an A/B test, what some of the outcomes of an A/B test could be, and then of course whether or not it would really work for our industry and how you can best apply it. So how do you do an effective A/B test? Well, real simple. You need two marketing pieces with only one variation between them. And that is critical. One variation between them. Your A piece, or your control, is the piece that everything else will be built on. Your variations, or B, in this case a singular variation, is going to be has one change between it and the A. So maybe it's the amount of the offer, maybe it's the picture on the offer, maybe it's the wording, but there will only be one change between piece A and piece B. Second thing, they all have to be dropped in the same time frame. The time frame varies by industry, so if you're someone like Coca-Cola or McDonald's, where people are buying your product on a consistent basis, everybody eats lunch every day, or most people eat lunch every day, and everybody buys Coca-Cola, or a good percentage of people buy Coca-Cola every week, you have a little less variation on time frame than you do for our industry, where people respond significantly better on a day where it is 85 degrees than on a day when it was 72 degrees. And that time frame is a real big issue for our industry because we do get those variances in things like weather. In St. Louis alone in February this year, we had a day where it was -9 degrees, and a little over a week later, it was nearly 60 degrees. And response is obviously going to be drastically different between those two. But it doesn't have to be that drastic. It can be the difference between 75 and sunny and 75 and raining. Response is going to be drastically different. And even the day of the week matters. Response on Monday, Tuesday is going to be drastically different than response on Friday, Saturday. So time frame must be the same. And then finally, you have to have enough marketing pieces to reach statistical relevance. And that means you need at least 100 responses in order to be able to make any determination. If you don't have that, you end up making decisions based on more of a whim than any actual statistical facts. So what are the goals of A/B testing? Well, the goal is to basically determine that there is a difference in response between piece A and piece B, or better said, to reject that the response rates of both are equal. If you were in statistics, this is called the null hypothesis. All we're trying to do is prove that there is a different response between piece A and piece B. If we don't have enough response to piece A or piece B to show a statistical difference, then we have to if we don't have enough to reject the null hypothesis, we have to either make the test bigger or we have to change a variant, meaning we have to go back and recreate a new A/B test because those pieces obviously don't have enough variation to get different response. The goal here is to find a statistically relevant difference between the responses in piece A and piece B. Problems with testing. Well, there are really two problems that you can come up with, and there's a type 1 error and a type 2 error. Type 1 error is probably the more likely to happen in our industry, so we'll cover that second. A type 2 error is a false negative, and that's where we have plenty of evidence that one piece is superior to another piece, and for whatever reason, we reject that claim and select the wrong piece. Probably unlikely to happen here based on our level of response rates, but that's what a false negative is, and it can happen. But again, pretty unlikely for our industry. A false positive is far more likely, and a false positive is where we start to make determinations before we hit statistical relevance. We don't have enough responses to say this piece is statistically better than that piece and yet we still make a determination. This is a false positive. And it's a big risk because false positives lead to people making marketing decisions on faulty data. And let me give you an example. If you sent out 1,000 emails of type A and 1,000 emails of type B, and type A got 10 responses and type B got 5 responses, we have not hit the minimum 100 responses to see statistical relevance. So even though it might seem like the responses for the type A piece were significantly higher, 50% more than the responses for piece B, we would be absolutely wrong to make that decision at this point. We don't have enough evidence that one piece is better than the other, and it's just as likely that if we were to test these pieces again on a larger test, we would see a reverse in those results. This is where the problem becomes an issue, because now all of a sudden we have made a determination, a false positive. If we say the one that got 10 responses is produced better, that's the one we should stick with. That's a false positive, and it's a way people lose a lot of money on advertising because they have not fought their way to statistical relevance. What we would need to do in this case is then blow the test up based on our response rate and take it now to 10,000 pieces of A and 10,000 pieces of B and see where our responses lie. If we found that A got 100 responses at 10,000 pieces and B only got 50 responses, now we have a statistically relevant response rate. And we can start to make determination. Now, I want to point out a key here. We've only hit the bare minimum of statistical relevance at 10,000 pieces, but at least at this point we can have some level, a very low level of confidence in our results. However, just because we saw in that smaller test, the 1,000 and 1,000, that we got 10 and 50, doesn't mean we would end up seeing 150. What we would likely see, just as likely we would see that those numbers reversed or that they were nowhere different at all, that they both got 75, because at 1,000 pieces we were nowhere near statistical relevance. And then we come into variables. As I was saying in that last example, we would have to do a second test, a much larger test, in order to find out if we had enough response rate. The problem with this is, for contractors, we have too many variables because we don't have enough prospects. We don't have enough people to do a large enough test. Response rates for a piece of mail are going to be somewhere between 2 to 3, 2.5 to 3.5 pieces, 2.5 to 3.5 responses per 1,000 pieces mailed. Responses on emails are going to fall similar. You're going to get 10, 15% open rate, 20% if you're doing exceedingly well. And again, we're talking about prospects and customers here, not just customers. You'll get a higher open rate on customers, but you're going to get a relatively low open rate, and the open rate isn't what we're looking for. What we're actually looking for is the call through or chat rate, and it's pretty difficult to find actual numbers on those. Most companies stop doing their testing at the open rate, but some do have form fill out rates, etc., and it's about 1% to 10%, and it varies wildly depending upon the industry, etc. For our industry, there are almost no good numbers for this. So if we assume, based on the data we have for other industries, that the numbers would be similar, you're going to be looking about the same response rate as you would with mail. So again, we're looking at an actual call-through rate of between 2.5 and 3.5 per 1,000 pieces. Problem with this is, well, the test then has to be pretty big in order for us to reach statistical relevance. How big? 33,300 pieces of each. So in order to do an A/B test, you'd have to send out about 60,000 pieces, whether that's digitally or physically. You'd have to have 60,000 pieces in a short time frame. And that short time frame is the key. You have to send it to all of the same people in the same area at the same time. And most contractors just don't have a base large enough to do that. And therein lies the problem. Simply put, there are too many variables and too few responses to effectively do an A/B test for an individual contractor. In order for most contractors to send out 60,000 pieces of mail, they would have to do it over multiple weeks. They don't have Even if they have the people, they don't have the budget to do it. And as soon as you add the change in weeks to the variation, the test results become impossible to read because you have too many variables. Now you've just upped your chances for a false positive again and again. What's a key indicator of this? I'm certain you've all had a conversation with a contractor where you're talking to them and they say things like, well, we found a piece and it worked great the first time we sent it out. And then the next time it was a little bit worse, and the next time it just didn't perform very well. And I don't know, we've never been able to get it perform like it did the first time. This is a sure sign that they didn't do proper testing in the beginning. They tested it against another piece, right? And that was the initial conversation. We tested 2 pieces. This one had a great response rate. We've never been able to match that test again. And the reason is simple. It was a false positive. They got good response, possibly due to the weather, possibly due to 1,000 other things. We could walk through them all. The day of the week it landed, just a need in the area. They got lucky. There are a lot of things that could have happened to drive that high response for a singular drop, whether, again, it's physical or digital media. But then they were unable to replicate those responses. And that's because we just don't have enough people as an individual contractor or enough budget in order to do the volume needed to do a statistically relevant test. In truth, to get true statistical relevance, you'd need to do about 250,000 pieces. That's where you'd have real confidence in your result, and again, over a short window of time. So, does that mean contractors shouldn't do A/B testing? Well, yes and no is the answer. You see, while most contractors can't reach statistical relevance on their own, there are companies who work with multiple contractors who can. They have the ability sending pieces over a larger swath of the country for multiple contractors at the same time and testing it in various regions, and they can then compare the results over similar weather, similar time, similar demographics, etc. And then you can drive the actual statistically relevant response from those pieces. And so that's what you want to do, is partner with someone who is testing for you rather than wasting money trying to do your own test when the chances of it being relevant and the chances of it actually working long term are relatively low. And the chances of you actually just getting a false positive and wasting a lot of money are very, very high. There is one key here, though. You want to make sure that the numbers that you're talking about, so when someone's talking to you about the email blasts they do or the online following ad, or the online ad tracking ads, direct mail, newspaper ads, etc., you want to make sure the numbers they're talking about are relevant to our industry, because if they're comparing you to bakers and if they're comparing you to car sales, etc., those numbers won't matter, because there's a big difference between the way people buy those things and the way that people buy what we sell. So you want to make sure the numbers are from this industry and not from the general market. So try to partner with somebody who has solid data for the industry we're in, HVAC and plumbing and electrical. So in order to do that, you want to reach out, get the relevant data from them, find out how much testing they've done. Do they have data from multiple contractors and what their success rates are? Take a look at it and then use the pieces when you find a contract or when you find an outside company like that. Use the pieces they suggest, because it's their job to do the A/B testing, and it'll save you the time, the money, and the heartache of running a test, getting a false positive, and then burning a bunch of money out of your wallet. Hey guys, I'm Eric from Stochastic. I want to thank you for listening to this today. And if you've got questions, if you'd love to comment on what I've had to say here today, please shoot me an email, give me a call, drop by our website for more videos like these and for more information. I appreciate you guys' time. Thanks. I'll talk to you soon.